Live. What's up, horror fans? Pete here from the Lasser Cast, where we talk about horror movies and horror streaming shows. I am here with my co-host of the most over there, Danny Torkel, Dr. Zayas God on Twitter and Blue Sky, which is where you can find me too. I was gonna say, Danny, you and I have covered a bunch of shows for this channel, and we've covered shows from our other channel, Comic Books Transformed. Which one do you think got us the most views? Do you remember?
I, Raised by Wolves had a fairly good. There were a lot of people there. Let me rephrase that. There weren't obviously a lot of people who watched that show. It did get canceled after one season, but there were a lot of the viewers of that show who watched and commented. Yellow Jackets did very well. That's probably the most popular of the shows that we've covered in the mainstream. Am I missing an obvious one?
Well, believe me, I was thinking about it this morning because the thing is, our Monarch episodes, as much as we kind of rag on this show, they've kind of continued to grow in viewers.
Well, I don't know if you realize this, Pete, but social media, people who take in social media and the internet love negativity.
Oh, okay. Yes. my thumbnails have. Go ahead.
I think it's important to preface that any negativity that we have towards this show is not rooted in like real anger and hatred towards the creators. It's more just disappointment towards what the expectations we had of this show were. Our expectations that were built up within this show after what I thought were a really good opening 3 episodes, and really just kind of a failure to live up to the hype. Also, again, and this is a point we have brought up really since the beginning, it's kind of unfortunate that Godzilla -1 came out at the same time that this show came out, because you have what everyone is considering the greatest Godzilla property of all time being released at the same time as this show, which has not really done the MonsterVerse a lot of justice, I think. No. That being said, I thought episode 9 was better than the last couple episodes. I think it was my favorite episode since episode 6.
Okay.
I still thought there would be more in this episode.
Yeah.
But I thought this was a step in the right direction. The logic, though, for me is a little all over the place now, especially with a certain reveal that comes up at the end. So yeah, I don't really know what this show can do in its finale next week to really just make me satisfied. And again, I just keep coming back to this weird thing of it. The timeline of the show puts it in the middle. So I am going to end up rewatching King of the Monsters probably after next week. Okay. And then I'm going to probably rewatch Godzilla versus Kong. I'll probably throw in a Kong Skull Island rewatch as well.
Oh my God. He's going all in.
I've watched the trailer for Godzilla X Kong. And I've watched some videos about the villain and all this stuff. And I there's just nothing about that trailer that interests me. There's this one YouTuber who does shorts about Godzilla, and he was trying to say that the running Godzilla is cool because, if you go back to the 70s Toho Godzilla movies, Godzilla was quirky and he was doing running drop kicks and he was, celebrating and he had baby Godzilla. And I was like, yeah, but that's kind of where Godzilla jumped the shark. Like when he needed Ultraman to defeat, what is it, Gigan, I think? Or
that sounds right. Yeah.
I was like, that's kind of like, I wanted my Godzillas a little bit more serious. Like, okay, here's a monster who's threatening Earth. Godzilla and that monster are going to kick each other's asses. When he was doing like flying drop kicks on his tail and doing like running celebrations, I was like, yeah, I think I might be a little too old for this. and like the MonsterVerse Godzilla is absolutely not that Godzilla. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. You know, it's funny. I like Power Rangers, even though I'm 41 years old. I'm a Power Rangers fan, and yeah, I've really gotten into it with my daughter. So like the Godzilla, it's silly where he's like sliding on his tail and teaming up and giving high fives to other monsters. That doesn't bother me as much because I kind of like goofy stuff like that too. But I do like serious, scary Godzilla more. You know, and you know, we raved a lot about Godzilla -1. It's on our spoilers. It's on our top 10 of 2023 list, which I'm working on editing right now. But what I was going to say is that I actually did kind of like the previous episode, and I actually really liked this episode a lot too. You had kind of predicted that maybe there'd be a strong final 3 episodes for this show, and that, you know, there'd be like a lull in the middle, and there certainly was a lull. But I think it's kind of gaining momentum. I think that for this show, its true strength lies in the idea that these kids are trying to find their dad and that the dad is part of a legacy. I mean, it's in the title of the show, Legacy of Monsters. And I think that like they really, when they lean into how Monarch affected this one family, I think it's interesting. You know, we get to see Kentaro and Kate's dad in this episode in a flashback. You know, there's this whole sequence where Wyatt Russell's Shaw is going to go into like a pod, essentially, like a ball, and be dropped into the underverse or whatever, wherever the monsters live, right? And there's a big accident, and he's MIA for 20 years. So spoilers. When he shows up, we have this sequence that is kind of a little bit out of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where he's in a Monarch facility. And the best part about that is we see Kentaro and Kate's dad, and he's different in this time, which is 1982 when you and I were born. He's very different from the man that he is in the present day. So like something significant has happened to him since then too. Did you find it like weird that Shaw, like essentially they do this shot where he's sitting there watching TV and he's Wyatt Russell, and then they cut and he's Kurt Russell? Did you think that it was weird that he essentially was just going to stay in this facility for, you know, 40 years?
I mean, I think they kind of hinted at that when we first meet Kurt Russell, when they rescue him at the retirement home. I do think it's weird that they have Monarch retirement homes that they like, and where they put people and drug people. And I like that what triggers him back into action is
Godzilla.
is watching Godzilla 2014 on TV.
Right.
Which again, that is how we watched Godzilla for the first hour and 40 minutes of that friggin' movie on friggin' newsreels.
Right.
But yeah, I did kind of like that, and I really did like the 1982 stuff. I liked the scene at the beginning, the giving him the knife, and then like him having it again, and like the realization in Wyatt Russell's mind, in Shaw's mind, that, oh my God, this is the kid that I left behind, you know, Uncle Lee. This is
right.
When he said, Uncle Lee, it's me, I was like, well, you know, that hit. Like, that was a good moment.
Yeah.
And Wyatt Russell is, I don't think he's as good an actor as his father, but I think he's a very good actor.
Sure.
Despite what Night Swim will tell you.
Oh no.
You know, spoiler for some other stuff on our channel. I have a short review of Night Swim. It was my first theater movie of 2024. And let's just say January horror movies have a trope unto themselves for a reason. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But yeah, Wyatt Russell, I think he's done really well in this show, whether he's playing a romantic lead with Dr. Mora in some episodes, where, you know, the episode where they dance and then they have their kiss that gets broken up, and you're like, what could have been? You have the moment you have him as like, the angry military guy who's trying to, force Monarch to go in a certain direction. I think he's been able to, really take this character in a lot of different ways that I like.
Yeah.
And I thought that this was probably his best episode. I really liked the 1982 stuff. I really liked the idea of, so it just keeps coming back for me is the idea. And again, this is going from Wyatt Russell to like that opening scene where they're putting these military guys and scientists in this like sphere project.
Right.
What is it? Project something with an H. I forgot.
Hourglass.
Hourglass. Yes. Project Hourglass. And they're going to send them into the Hollow Earth.
Right.
And it's like, I think one of them dies.
Yes, like right away. Yes.
And that guy who died was in the fucking like ship in the sphere, this like metal spheric ship going into the Hollow Earth. And it was such a rough journey that he died. And yet, at the same time, in the same episode, we're expected to believe that we could just jump in like we're diving off the diving board for a night swim.
Yeah.
And you can just land safely in Hollow Earth, where the ground becomes electrified and starts shooting fucking lightning. And there are titans roaming, small and large.
Yes.
And that irks me to no end. That is a logic flaw that I simply cannot look past.
Right.
And as we mentioned last week, there's nitpicking, and then there's like just giant logic flaws. And to me, this is a logic flaw that even if I was loving this show, I'd be like, but wait, well, hold on.
Yeah.
But because I'm not loving this show, because I've loved parts of the show and most of the show has just felt kind of like tedious to me.
Yeah.
That is really sticking in my craw. And then, look, we're going to talk about it anyway. I'm just going to say it now. The fact that Dr. Mora is alive, the fact that we watched her get pulled into Hollow Earth by basically Titan babies hatched from eggs that were like attacking her legs and had her covered to her waist.
Yeah.
And she plummeted into Hollow Earth that way. And we're expected to just think that not only did she survive that, but that she's been A-okay for the next X number of years in the Hollow Earth. Obviously, time moves differently there.
Yeah.
And that she trained herself to be a, warrior who can fasten a bow and shoot off Titans. That's where I kind of just like I went like I know that like that is a moment that when it's written up in the room and when it's portrayed on screen, the hope is that is a cheer moment.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, yes. And for me, it was like, all right, okay, yeah, okay, whatever, And I blame my sister for this because my sister freaking called it. Last week she texted me. She was like, I bet she's still alive. I bet she comes back in the hut.
Yeah. I blame your sister too, because honestly, I wasn't expecting that. But then
listen, you've never met my sister, but it's always a good whenever there's a problem, even in Texas, just be like, fucking Danny's sister. Trust me, it works.
Sure, all right. That's a good rule of thumb. I like that. No, I kind of grown to, that whole sequence when she shows up at the end, there's that warthog that's like kind of got tree branches growing out of it, and it looks like it's going to eat Kate. It does kind of that typical evil creatures stalking you moment that, you have multiple times like this in the Lord of the Rings, where it's like the creature's on one side of a tree or a wall, and it's right here, and the character's up against the wall. And then they look and the creature's gone on that side, but then it's like, oh no, it's on this side. Like that. That's like, done to death. It comes charging at her. And then of course, with perfect accuracy, Dr. Mora shoots it right in the eye and kills it. That's like I guess it's like cheesy that she's still alive and she's down there. However, she's like so charismatic and such a big part of the show that to have her come back is a revelation for the world of this show. It's like it's a big deal on the show for her to be back and alive. Um,
It also is going to ask a weird question again about the timeline. Like, does she make it back? Is she a character that we completely forgot about from the other movies? That like, or does she just now die in episode 10 and uh not, and is she not a part of the MonsterVerse anymore? That like,
yeah, I would assume that she's either going to die or she's going to choose to stay down there. I don't think she's going to come back to the modern day world. Or if she does, I guess there's a third option where she's like, I'm going to live quietly and Monarch will never know I'm alive, and she'll like live secretly somewhere.
yeah,
Uh
I mean, we've watched the trailer for Godzilla X Kong, and that movie seemingly takes place a lot in the Hollow Earth, and there seem to be humans in the Hollow Earth somewhere. So
yeah.
maybe she is a character in the Hollow Earth, in Godzilla X Kong.
I mean that would actually be kind of cool. That'd be sort of like MCU level sort of cross
Yeah,
pollinating. You know, and in ways it'd be like superior to the DC movies, you know, because you'd have someone that was like on a show that they created that's in the movies. They've kind of did that with like some of the Peacemaker people, but it's always these like awkward
yeah.
cameos. I'm sure this would be awkward as hell too if she's in the movie.
Did
But
you see? Did you see the film? And I'm pretty sure you did see this one. Did you see Annihilation?
shit, yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Because the Hollow Earth sort of reminds me of I forgot what the energy
The
field is.
Shimmer.
The Shimmer. Yes, it reminds me a lot of the Shimmer, and that warthog, that giant pig monster with like which looked like it had been like melded with branches and trees. That kind of reminded me of the creatures that we saw in the Shimmer and
Right,
Annihilation.
right, like the deer. Yeah,
Yeah. And like that fucking
there.
the bear. My
Yeah,
God.
let's see Dr.
Uh,
Moore take that on.
yeah, really. But yeah, no, okay. So that's what. So I got a good like Annihilation vibe from some of the Hollow Earth stuff in this episode.
That's a good vibe to get for like a sci-fi property. You know, I love Annihilation. I was gonna say that like for the Hollow Earth itself, it's interesting because when you're looking at it in Godzilla versus Kong, it looks like this big, sort of vast, sprawling world. And you know, it's almost like Pandora from the Avatar movies, where there's like shit floating in the air, and there's animals flying all around. And then you know, obviously they have like a TV budget, so they're in like the woods now. You know, it's like much more scaled down. It's like, is this Canada, but just like with lightning coming out of the ground?
Yeah.
But I was gonna say I didn't want to kind of take away too much from what I did like in this episode. I did like that they go into the Hollow Earth and that they look almost like the Fantastic Four when they're going in there. You know, they're all suited up. They all have like the same color uniform. And there's a woman on the team. It's kind of like, you know, the Invisible Woman. I'm sure that when Matt Fraction was in the writer's room, that was the vibe they were going for, was like the Fantastic Four. And there's like an accident like immediately, just like the Fantastic Four. Um, I like the sequence when he's in that hospital, and then we see Kintaro's mom, and that was the first part that was jarring because I recognized Kintaro's mom, but I was like, she can't be like from the 50s or 60s because she'd be too old. So then it's like, oh, he's been gone for like 20 years and not aged, which is that's how they explain that like Kurt Russell looks so young even though he is like
Yeah.
over 90 years old. Um, it's I
Like the
actually
running joke in the series is you look good for 90.
right.
And I think he's 70 something now. And
Sure.
look, I'm man enough to say Kurt Russell's gonna look good when he's 90.
Hell yeah.
That man's got a head of hair that we all envy.
Yeah.
Even
It's not going away, man. Yeah. And he's got that charm. You know, he's a good looking dude. His son plays him in a pretty sad state back in 1982. and I like it because he's just pretty obnoxious. He keeps asking for Banda over and over again, Banda, Banda, and then he eventually at one point freaking puts a cord around Kentaro's mom's neck, and he's like just screaming like, "Get me, Banda, blah blah blah, call Banda, whatever."
Randa.
Randa. Sorry.
Bill Randa.
Call Bill Randa, right? Call Bill. I want to talk to Bill Randa. Blah, blah, blah. Like a lunatic. He's just screaming it. I actually really like that sequence. And then he kind of has that revelation. He understands that like it's been so long, and it sort of like just knocks him down. One thing that kind of trips me out. We talk about interconnectivity. Is that Bill Randa is John Goodman's character from Kong Skull Island. Like, I always forget that.
Oh.
Because he's in the show in the beginning. He, like, throws the documents or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, it's weird to think that guy that we've been following on the show becomes John Goodman's character in that movie.
So you see, that is something that I had completely...
Yeah.
whiffed on. I was going into this show with an air of positivity. Oddly, since I had not loved a single one of the MonsterVerse movies, so there are parts of the MonsterVerse that I probably have just. So this is the one thing I'll give this show is that it's inspiring me to rewatch movies I didn't like, and I already rewatched Godzilla 2014. I'm gonna rewatch, I guess, Kong Skull Island and then King of the Monsters, because I guess those three movies are really where this series takes place.
Yes.
And then Godzilla versus Kong is now after this movie, or King of the Monsters, and then Godzilla versus Kong is after this movie.
Yes.
Because Kong goes from Skull Island to Hollow Earth, I guess.
Eventually, yeah.
All right.
Because in Godzilla versus Kong, he's like almost in like a Matrix kind of enclosure. I think that is on Skull Island.
That is, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, a lot happens in this episode. They have them going down to Hollow Earth, and also Kentaro thinks that they're dead. The people from Monarch believe they're dead. They tell Kentaro that like Shaw and May and Kate are all dead. I was going to ask you, we haven't even mentioned, we kind of gloss over the show a lot. There's this one tech that works for Monarch that gets all excited. She has this little revelation moment on this episode where she realizes there's a pattern with like the energy that's coming out of the MonsterVerse. Do you recognize that actress at all?
I don't.
She's in a lot of like genre things. Brian and I have actually talked about her a lot because she's on this horrible show called Jupiter's Legacy, which Brian and I watched all that on Netflix and reviewed it for Comic Books Transformed. And then she's also Huey's girlfriend in The Boys that gets like annihilated by A-Train.
Oh my God! In the first episode.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Okay, I mean that is a literal blink and you miss it. Like she's in the show for the first 30 seconds.
Yeah. So she's in a lot of genre things, and then like in this episode, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot this character even exists. And
I really liked that scene because it was a really hard edit with with a glaring musical choice, and I was like, wow, why would they go to this? And then the camera pans to her listening to music on her headphones. I was like, okay, that got me. That was clever. I got a chuckle out of that scene.
Right.
And I liked her like reaction to what was going on the screens. I will say, acting wise, the acting has not been a problem for me on this show. I think the actors are doing a very good job. I'm just not always interested in what they're talking about.
Right.
But what I will say is the scene where Hiroshi comes home finally and sees Kentaro there, and Kentaro tells him that Kate is dead. And at first, Hiroshi just, the dad, he just like brushes it off like, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. And then when he tells him and he has that breakdown, I thought that was like, because these are two characters that have obviously, there's a lot of contention there. And for Kentaro to like be using like your daughter's dead as a like weapon just to hurt him
Yeah.
because he has nothing else and he wants like other people to feel his pain. And for a father to realize that like the daughter that he basically like left behind to put his work first is gone, and to have that breakdown, I thought that was really well done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So again, I the acting is not a problem. I think all the actors on the show are doing a good job. It's just that the dialogue that's been written for them is not always very interesting, especially in the present day, a lot of the background stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like, see, now that you said that Bill Randa's John Goodman, I'm like, okay, so he just watched his best friend and his girlfriend slash wife die, and he's gonna flip out and go to Skull Island. That's like, okay, that makes me excited for. And that's where, and then like you can like Hiroshi has now lost every adult that he's loved, and so he in 1982 is like this jaded, Monarch employee who's like, no, that was another good line of dialogue where he tells him, he tells Shaw, like, you guys meet, you guys with this craziness, and he goes, we're not crazy. It's real. And he goes, oh, well, then you chose that. And that's a choice I'm not going to make.
That is a good line of dialogue.
And I thought that in itself is just a really interesting thing where it's like, you find out information and like, you could bring this right up to like 2024 and like modern day conspiracy theories and politics and stuff like that. It's like, there's things in the world that are going on, and you can, and yeah, some of them are terrible and some of them should be investigated, but like, you're a John Q or Jane Q person, and you can choose to make that your identity.
Right.
You can choose to say, yes, I believe the earth is flat, and then make your entire life about that. Or you can choose. I'm thinking of, and I'm not going to get into it, but like, I'm thinking about like the Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Kimmel thing right now, where it's like, don't worry about it. Just Google it.
Okay.
But again, that's a New York thing because Aaron Rodgers is on the Jets. So it's louder here in New York.
Gotcha.
But it's like, you can choose to make these things part of who you are, or they can just exist without you caring, and you can go on and live for the people in front of you, your family and your work and everything else. And I thought that was a really interesting series of dialogue where Hiroshi, as like a 20-year-old or 25-year-old, is telling Shaw, like, yeah, I'm not going to choose to make Godzilla and Monarch my legacy. That I'll let that die with the past. And then of course something happens,
right,
which I'm hoping they get into next episode. Something happens for Hiroshi where he inevitably does make it his legacy. He does choose to follow in that path, and he is, he ends up like his ancestors, leaving his kids behind, his family behind, to go and follow Monarch and Godzilla. So I think that it's very interesting, that aspect of it.
Yeah, that is the literal legacy of the show, is how much Monarch affects their family and like makes them do things, And I think that whatever the thing is that makes him change his perspective, I think it has something to do with Godzilla. It's the idea that like Godzilla, like they definitely want to make it that this family, the Nora family, that like they are connected to Godzilla, that they see how important Godzilla is for the earth, And I still do think that there are possibilities for cameos with like Vera Farmiga or maybe even Charles Dance within this last episode, because there's only one episode left after this one. So
I'm really hoping that they don't. I'm really hoping they don't end on a cliffhanger for a season 2. And again, it's not because it's not even because I haven't really enjoyed this show. I think overall, we do this a lot. If I was going to give this season a rating out of 10, it would probably be a high 5 to low 6.
I thought you were gonna say 7, but okay, yeah, all right.
No, I
Nah,
like
wow.
because overall, the episodes that I've liked, I would give probably an 8 to 8.5. But the
Yeah.
episodes I've disliked, I've just felt like 45 minutes wasted.
Over your life, yeah. Okay, okay, okay. I understand
But
that.
but
Yeah.
the reason I don't want a season 2 is it's not even because of my opinion of the show. It's because I don't think it would make sense for the MonsterVerse. There's another fucking movie coming out in a few months. I think April is
Yeah.
Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire. Yeah, because Aquaman was the Lost Kingdom.
And this is the New Empire. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's too many movies that share the same title.
Yes. Yes.
Like there's another movie coming out. It doesn't make sense to keep doing seasons of a show that's set in the past of a series that's still going.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that this show could easily be wrapped up within one season. However, I do think that if they went for like a season 2, which I think that Matt Fraction even alluded to on Kingcast, I think that they could really kind of play up this idea of Kintaro's dad maybe working with Vera Farmiga and Charles Dance. Like that would be kind of like the selling point if they ended it with like him kind of being with those people, because then they like, do they fucking find Ghidorah? They find Ghidorah, or wait, Ghidorah is the fucking smog monster, King
No,
Ghidorah.
no,
Right?
Ghidorah.
What's the one with all the heads?
Ghidorah.
Ghidorah. Okay.
Yeah, it's just the way you pronounce it. Ghidhora. Yeah, Ghidorah.
Okay.
But
So
you're thinking of Hedorah, who is the
Hedorah.
smog monster.
Thank you. They find Ghidorah in the Arctic or whatever, and I'm sure that like they could milk a season out of that, like basically transitioning from now till
now
yeah.
I've read. I've watched these videos of like previewing Godzilla X Kong, where they talk about how there's this giant like dragon-esque Titan that has freezing powers, and they think that is like the Titan that froze Ghidorah, and that's why Godzilla is frozen at the beginning of Godzilla X Kong, and that is going to be like a supplemental Titan villain in Godzilla X Kong.
Okay.
Along with the giant ape, who I guess his name is Scar King.
Scar King. That's cute.
Yeah, I think, you brought up Power Rangers. I think Godzilla versus Kong and Godzilla X Kong feel more like Power Ranger movies.
Yeah.
And I grew up with Power Rangers, not because of me, but because of my friggin' sister, who
all
made
comes
me watch
back to
Power
her.
Rangers. And then, do you remember all the terrible spin-offs of Power Rangers?
I mean, they still go on to this day. I mean, there's been like 30 of them.
Oh no, I don't mean like spin-offs of Power Rangers. I mean like I don't mean Power
like
Rangers.
Big Bad Beetleborgs and
Big
VR
Bad
Troopers.
Beetleborgs.
Yes,
Yeah.
Supersonic Samurai. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of those. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the times I saw my dad the angriest was we bought my sister. I'm really shitting on her this episode.
You sure are.
I'm gonna call her and we'll talk about football for the weekend. But we watched. She was big into Beetleborgs. The main character on Beetleborgs looked like Jay Leno in a Frankenstein mask.
Yeah, like Jay Leno and Elvis. Yeah.
Yeah.
His name's like Flubber too, or something. I don't remember his.
Yeah, Blabber or something like that. But we bought her this like Beetleborgs like hideout, and it was the worst thing to put together. Like my dad and I trying to put that together was a nightmare. And like when we were done, we were like, play with your freaking toy.
Jesus, yeah. I didn't even know they fucking sold those, They
did for a while. My sister was born in the early 90s, so it must have been like probably the mid to late 90s, like when
Yeah.
she was probably like 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say like 97 to 98, maybe.
Yeah. All the lore and stuff that's connected to Power Rangers and that show and VR Troopers, they're all like things that are taken from Japan and then
Voltron.
American. Right. And Americans are like, okay, well, how can we take this and make our own American version of it? And so they're all kind of connected too in Japan too. It's real interesting stuff, and it's kind of funny that you kind of
It's
tie it into.
amazing to me that they've not tried to they've made the live action Power Rangers movies, which I've heard mixed reviews on. The last one, they made, they're making all of this Godzilla stuff. It's amazing to me that they've not tried to make a live action Voltron movie ever.
I think there have been talks about it before. They just haven't moved forward. I mean, there's always like talks of like a live action Thundercats, live action Voltron. I just think that they haven't like moved forward with it. But there have been Power Rangers and Godzilla comics, and Cullen Bunn, whose video you watched the other day, the one that did the trivia, he wrote that comic too, Power Rangers versus Godzilla. But we are going all off on some different tangents here. Why don't we bring it back?
What happens in our Monarch reviews? We eventually lose. We eventually just run out of things to talk about with Monarch, and we end up talking about other things which are like parallel or perpendicular to.
Yes. There's somehow tangentially. Yeah. So speaking of tangentially, though, this is a good segue. Come on, take that segue and ride it, Danny, right to your review.
I'll co-sign it.
There you go.
Oh, sorry. You said tangent. I thought we were doing math now.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I have a
Building
dad
a
joke
dad
calendar
joke.
for the new year. So.
Oh no, you got a calendar for it? Oh, we're friggin' doomed.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well. So what is that connective tissue to your review in this show?
Oh, I kind of hinted at it before. Wyatt Russell, one of the stars of Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. He has a new horror film out called Night Swim. It's the first theatrical release horror film of 2024, and it's a January horror movie. I do have a short review up on the channel. I did not kill it in my short review. The more I've thought about it, the more I kind of just don't like it at all. A lot of the reviews have been negative. It might be worth a rent when it's on VOD, or if it comes out for free somewhere, give it a watch, but nothing you need to run out to the theater for. I also have a short review of the trailer for The First Omen, a movie I had no idea was even in production.
That makes two of us.
And I don't know if you've watched this trailer. It is one of the most unsettling trailers. The entire trailer is run backwards. So just watch it. Everything is run backwards. So it's like the characters are walking backwards. Everything is done like they turn the film and they run it in reverse, and it's so creepy. And the first time I was watching it, I was like, "What is this?" And and apparently this is like legit tied to the Omen franchise. And 2 years ago, I think we did our for holiday horror, we did our big three, the Trinity of Terror with Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, and The Omen. The Omen has a very special place in my heart. It's one of the first horror movies that my parents showed me that legit forced me to like stop watching this movie and run out of the room. It's one of the scariest movies I've ever saw. Yeah. I always rank this higher than The Exorcist, which is a very unpopular opinion. But I've always had a spot for this franchise, even the sequels. Right. And back in my Geeks of Doom days, I was reviewing the very short-lived Damien series, which, interestingly, like the Exorcist series that we reviewed for this channel, was actually pretty good. And it didn't get renewed. It was, I think, only on for 1 or 2 seasons, but it had its moments. It was really good. Yeah. And so this trailer creeped me out. Loved it. Loved the music choice. Very excited for that. It comes out, I think, April 5th.
Okay. All right. That's not too far
so
away.
Yeah, that gives us something else to look forward to in April, I think.
Yeah. Nice, man. Cool.
Oh,
okay.
And the last thing I'll mention, as far as I'm concerned, is this coming Wednesday, which I believe is the 10th of January from when we are filming,
It is.
I'm going to IFC Center in Manhattan for another Shutter showcase for
Nice.
Destroy All Neighbors. That movie is coming
Oh,
out Wednesday next
okay.
week. That movie is coming out on Friday, the 12th on Shutter.
Okay.
I'm going to be seeing it a couple days early at the IFC Center. Sam Zimmerman, the head of programming for Shutter, will be there to introduce the film. I
Cool.
don't know if any of the filmmakers will be there. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But either way, I'm going to be there for that. And when I get
Nice.
home, I will throw up a short review of that. But that movie looks really fun. And I'm really kind of stoked to see that.
Okay. Very cool, man. Yeah, I know that you mentioned that, and The Elderly on Shutter for this month coming up, so that we should check them out and review them on our channel. So
Yeah.
I'm down, man. I'm definitely down. And speaking of which, we also recorded our best of 2023 video last, a couple weeks ago at this point, and so I'm just gonna be editing that, and hopefully I can get that up this week, part one at least. It's pretty dense. Danny and I recorded for like an hour and 40 minutes, discuss a whole bunch of movies, not just 10 altogether, and so that's one of our highlights of the channel. But if you like the Lasser Cast, make sure that you have subscribed. Also, let us know what you think of Monarch. We always love hearing from you guys in the comments. But yeah, make sure that you subscribe, give us a like, and we got one more episode of Monarch to go. So we'll see you guys